Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Organelle podcast. My name is Xaviour Greenhalgh, and I am the lead developer of Organelle, the digital health platform. Joining me today is none other than our glorious founding practitioner, Mr. Lionel Godwin himself. How are you doing today, my man?
Xavier, I am one, very well, and two, very happy and excited to be here again. You know, I love nothing more than talking about health and wellness and letting people understand just how much of a control we have over our health and wellness. So couldn't be happier than to be here today.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it as much as I am. And this is our second episode, which means we're getting right into the thick of it. Last time we answered the question of why Organelle, being that that's who we are and how we're going to go about this. If you want to go back and listen to that first, be my guest. But today we're tackling something potentially even more powerful, and that is, what is health? It's a difficult, or a more difficult question perhaps than you think it is, to define the word that defines everything that we're doing, both in our company and in life. Lionel, hit me with it. How do you, a practitioner with more than 40 years of experience in the industry, define that one magic word?
Health is a way of feeling, being, and existing over which you feel the best you can be, you act the best you can, and you own the journey of how you think, feel, and react. It's the absolute innate understanding of just what I do on a day to day basis to be the healthiest version of myself.
I love it. How you think, feel, react, and exist. That's a beautiful definition, especially considered. And I don't know if you've seen this, but I Googled it just before the show. And the dictionary defines health as, quote, the state of being free from illness or injury, end quote. And I think you'll probably agree that that represents a pretty fundamental problem with how we think about the word in the modern context, being that health is often tied to something wrong with people. You know, if you're talking about health, it's usually the context of my health's not good enough, and you're trying to fix someone who's broken. Whereas there's two sides to that coin, and the other side is, of course, you want to take someone who's just all right and make them phenomenal. And we see Organelle as a platform to achieve both. What are your thoughts on that, Lionel?
Yeah, look, couldn't have put it better myself. At the end of the day, we are, by virtue of our lifestyles, exposed to illness, exposed to injury. Some things are just preventable. You have an accident, you get an injury. You come across someone who's very unwell, they pass on a virus to you. We've all seen what happened with COVID. Alternate to that, though, is the amount of control that we have over our health and wellness and how susceptible we are not to being hit by a bus. That's always going to cause some injuries that are going to uh, set us back. But, you know, there are so many things that we can control within our own health and wellness journey and the destination that we aspire to. And that's where Organelle, for me, is the ideal platform. We look at not only where you are currently, but what we can do to either prevent, predict, or lessen the impact of chronic long-term illness and or injury.
Yeah, and it's phenomenal to bring Organelle in there, but we'll try and keep today's discussion just absolutely constrained to the broad term of health. We don't want to be too much of a salesman now, do we?
No,
Okay,
we don't.
so
And go.
you're right, you're right. We've got our definition for health, right? And it's a lot better than the standard dictionary one. But I think what's most important right after that definition is figuring out how we assess and measure that. Because just having health doesn't mean a lot if we can't interpret that towards ourselves and towards others. So, how do we do that, Lionel? How do we measure something as abstract and complete as health?
For me, the perfect measurement in the initial stages is to get our bloods done. So to get a full blood panel using these biomarkers that we get from our bloods to have a really good understanding of where we currently sit. There's a very good saying out there that our bloods don't lie, and it's something that I fully support. That's a statement that is incontrovertible. Our bloods do not lie. If there's something going on, good or bad, within our body, then our bloods are the best representation of that in the early stages. And so for me, understanding our bloods is the start. It's getting those pathologies done so that we can see where we're at and then use them as a reference point to either monitor how we're going or to really make changes.
Yeah, we've got the obviously that's what we love here at Organelle. We love the biomarker because that's the objective numeric value, right? So you can't go wrong when you know someone's exact blood pressure count, right? It's just two
Uh,
numbers.
it's two
But
numbers.
what's also important, and I'd love to get your input on, is not the objective side of it in this numeric forms, but the really subjective side of it in symptoms. Because obviously, that's how most people assess their health. They don't have a goddamn clue about the actual numbers behind it. That they're just obviously going through their day, analyzing how they feel, how their body reacts. How do you think that plays into this whole dynamic?
Well, people get confused. People don't understand the signals or the symptoms that their body's telling them. So, we want to make that interpretable for people. And once you understand your bloods and your biomarkers, and once they're represented to you in a way that allow you to understand them, then you can start to recognize what these symptoms mean. But more importantly, what you can do to intervene with them. And this is not a sales show for Organelle. But what we do at Organelle is that we look at your total bloods. We use our automated systems and our artificial intelligence to gather all of the data that we get in the form of the biomarkers from our blood tests so that we can create an innate understanding of you as an individual. With that innate understanding of you, the individual, we then look at, okay, what do these symptoms mean? You've presented to me with headaches in the morning, lethargy in the afternoon, and a stiff back every night. We can look at your biomarkers and go, okay, this is what's contributing to that. This is what we need you to be thinking of. This is what we need you to be cognizant of, or this is what interventions we believe will make a difference to that. That being understood, we then also have the capacity to monitor and manage all that through the platform that we've developed at Organelle, the digital health platform, just to see when we have made changes to people, whether those changes are in fact being represented in your blood works.
Yeah, it's like two pieces of a puzzle, isn't it? Where you got the objective side of it, and you got the subjective side of it, with obviously your biomarkers and your symptoms, and you only really get the complete picture when they're both informing each other. Obviously, you get someone coming in with these symptoms of a headache in the morning, and then you don't really know what that could possibly be. But then you look at all this data we have of their biomarkers over time, and you can suddenly inform that with, oh, it's something to do with this cortisol level or something. And that gives you the complete picture that lets you provide the most accurate solution. And it's why Organelle, oh God, I've become a salesman as well. But bear with me, listeners. It's why what we do as specialists, because we bring that objective data that's really easily understandable, and we combine it with expert consultation through lovely people like Lionel, who have tons of experience and expertise in this stuff. And not to
And,
mention a nice, lengthy consultation window that's not going to be like the 5 minutes you get in the doctor's office.
and I don't think we need to shy away from that. I don't, this is not a sales show for Organelle, but I don't think we need to be ashamed of the fact that we do use these data points and these biomarkers to really provide a level of servicing that you're not going to get from your doctor. We have the time at Organelle. Your doctor doesn't. So, I don't apologize for the fact that we are providing a depth of information and interpretation that is going to make your journey so much easier. And also, I hope in long term, take away maybe some stresses and anxieties you might have around your own health and wellness. So, whilst, yes, we're not selling and flogging stuff, I don't think we should apologize for really caring about what information we're providing to our clients.
No, no, we probably shouldn't. What we do is pretty awesome. But to get
Yeah.
us back on track a little bit here, we've talked about what health is. Obviously, it's the state of being that which you live your life. It's so much more than just, fixing broken parts of you. Then we've talked about how to measure it. Obviously, it's the beautiful synergy between objective measurements like biomarkers and blood pressure and that kind of thing, combined in synergy with the symptoms, the subjective things that only the person suffering them really knows and understands. Bring those two together, we have beautiful measurements. Then comes in our third puzzle piece, which obviously is then how do we affect change on health, our health in particular? And there are, to my understanding, a few levers through which we can do this. Lionel, do you want to take us through those levers?
Absolutely. So lever one is to understand exactly where we're at, using the biomarkers that we get from your blood test to absolutely have a really strong innate understanding of where you're at. And then we look at what is contributing to your biomarkers. What's the environment that you live in? What can we do to change that up if it's an environment that's creating some stress or anxiety? We look at your relationships. We look at your work and what's contributing, if anything, from work to your levels of stress or anxiety. We look at our level of activity and what control we have over the activity we are doing and what level of activity we should be doing. We look at our sleep. For me, that's one of the most important factors. We need to understand the importance and significance of sleep and what's happening when we're asleep. And then for me, the absolute go-to is what we are eating. Um, we, for all intent and purposes, can be eating a really well-balanced meal. But coming back to what I said earlier, if we're not absorbing everything that we're eating, then that's an issue. Okay, it's one thing to be eating really, really well, but if the quality of those foods are really, really poor, even though we might be buying them from the supermarket, but if the quality of the food that we're buying through the storage that it's gone through the length of time it's been sitting on a shelf, or the soil that it was grown in, can all impact on the nutrient density of that food. So for me, what I like to do first and foremost, when I've got my biomarkers, I look at what I can do from a nutritional point of view to make the most significant change, and then I work my way back through sleep, through exercise, through the work, through the environmental factors that might be impacting, and also the social elements of our lifestyle as well, and then make the changes or pull the levers as we place a priority on them. If, for example, someone presents and you referred to cortisol earlier in a completely out of uh, um,
I
context.
wasn't even a little close.
Yes, but that's okay. You weren't even a little close. But let's look at it.
Ah,
Let's look at someone who is suffering from perhaps anxiety or stress. Generally their cortisol levels are going to be right up. So, that might be the first lever that we pull from a nutritional point of view. What can we do to support the adrenals to lessen this cortisol production and the stress and the anxiety, that's going on. So we use food to look at bringing it down. We then look at the situational things that we can work on. And that's, again, what Organelle is about. Organelle is about providing that level of understanding of what's going on, recognizing the symptoms for what they are, but then providing the interventions that we can assist you with, whether it be through whatever support you might require, be it exercise, be it nutrition, being it life changing coaching that we can provide. Our practitioners are aimed and their sole purpose is working with you, the individual, just to provide that best possible support using the biomarkers as our reference point, your goals and aspirations to meet the outcomes that are most desirable for you. So they're the levers that we would traditionally be pulling.
absolutely. That's awesome. So we've got all these levers. Your favorite is clearly nutrition. You like to pull the food lever. It's really interesting to me that we can take a kind of psychophysiological process. I think I just invented a word, but that's okay.
Yes.
Where we have something like a cortisol metric tied to something like stress, where your cortisol going up is increasing your stress, and your stress going up is increasing your cortisol. And we can kind of throw a circuit breaker into that process in the form of nutrition by giving you all these things that are going to help lower that cortisol level, which will then reverse the spiral into one that's fixing it. Whereas now your cortisol is lower, which is lowering your stress, and your lowered stress is lowering your cortisol, till eventually we return to that baseline. And it is just beautiful and representative of the power of nutrition. And as we like to say here at Organelle, food is indeed medicine.
Hmm. Or what we eat is medicine, what we absorb is medicine. But again,
What we
the beauty of the Organelle platform, our digital health platform, is that we, as I said, we can monitor these things and we can then assess whether what we're doing is having the desired effect. And that's the important thing for me. You know, it's one thing to offer a service to people, it's another thing to offer a service that is actually definable, but represented in terms of the changes that are occurring. And that's the most significant thing for me. If we want people to embrace their wealth and wellness journey, let them be able to monitor. And if we monitor it, then we know whether what we're doing is working or not. And it's a great gift and it's a great tool that we can use and give to people.
Well said. Could not have said that better.
Well,
Okay, so we've gone through what health is, or what we believe health is, then we've gone through how we measure that health, and finally we've ended up with the kind of levers that we can pull in order to affect that health for better or worse. I'm going to throw you a bit of a curveball now, Lionel, my good friend. If you could have people do just one type of lever change, so one type of behavioral change associated with one of our levers of health, what would that be to increase the maximum possible effect on society as a whole?
understanding what you're absorbing from the food that you're eating.
Oh, it's
That-
knowledge. I
It's
was for
knowledge.
sure thinking you were going to outlaw fast food.
No, no. Fast food in isolation plays a really important part in the social fabric for some people. So, I don't want to be ultra prescriptive and say to people, you can't have a red wine or you can't have fast food. But if you understand what you're absorbing from the nutrients that you're eating, that will tell you how often you might be able to have fast food or how often you might be able to have a red wine. So for me, that's the most important thing. We need to understand what we're absorbing. And the best way to do that, I keep coming back to it, it's not a sales pitch, it's through our biomarkers. So
Hmm.
it,
Well, I wasn't even expecting that, but apparently, ladies and gentlemen, the number one thing you can do to improve your life in terms of pulling a health lever is to keep listening to the Organelle podcast. And I can fully agree with that message, Lionel. Yes, I can.
yes, I'm very pleased that you can. And what we absorb is really important in terms of the impact it has on our biomarkers. So these are the tools that we need to use and understand. And it makes it then a really meaningful and worthwhile journey because you're not guessing. You're taking all the guesswork out. You've got all of the evidence there that you need to really control your journey moving forward. And that's what I'm excited about with what you guys have developed and what I'm most looking forward to sharing with our clients.
Fantastic. I think that is a brilliant answer to the overall question of what is health, at least as much as we can get across in these short 20 minutes. So, for everyone listening, if anything we've said has captured your interest, or you'd just like to find out more or potentially get involved with Organelle, you can go to organelle.com.au. That's organelle.com.au.
That'll be the
That
best
said,
move you can make.
Lionel,
That is great.
oh, that right it would.
Look, I really enjoyed talking to you again. I love talking about this stuff, and to get the opportunity to share this with you is really important to me. And I wish everybody great health, great eating, and great choices.
I can't think of anything better to end it on than that. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will see you in the next one.